Did you know that a simple curved blade from the 8th century still beats the modern chainsaw? You've been told that new is always better, that progress means more complexity and power. But what if the most advanced tools were invented thousands of years ago? Today, we will reveal 10 ancient weapons so perfectly designed that they are still used today. These are not relics, but masterpieces of efficiency that modern technology often cannot surpass. Wait until you see the 70,000-year-old tool that has transformed civilizations from Egypt to New Zealand. You'll never look at a simple instrument the same way again. These inventions prove that human ingenuity reached perfection long before the machine age. Each one tells a story of genius born out of the need for survival. After this, you will understand that progress does not always mean replacing the old with the new. This is not a symbol of death from films, but a revolutionary tool for life. Although the exact origins of the scythe are lost in time, its true moment came with the agricultural innovations of the Carolingian era. Around the 8th century, it exploded into widespread use throughout Europe. For the first time, farmers could harvest and store huge quantities of hay. This allowed their livestock to survive harsh winters, leading to a massive expansion of agriculture. A simple tool became the engine of the agrarian revolution of the Middle Ages. Ancient blacksmiths created two ingenious designs. The English scythe had a heavy, stiff blade for heavy work, but the Austrian scythe had a lighter, softer blade. The Austrian scythe could be sharpened directly in the field using a small hammer and anvil. This process, called beating, thinned and strengthened the metal edge without grinding. This meant that a farmer's most important tool could last a lifetime. The beating technique turned an ordinary blade into a self-sharpening weapon. Now, the part that seems impossible. In an open field, an experienced mower is not only quieter and cleaner than a gas trimmer, it is faster. This is proven year after year at the Green Spit Festival in the UK, where human power consistently beats petrol machines. The long curved scythe handle is a perfectly designed ergonomic system. It transforms the body's momentum into a flawless sweeping cut using the physics of human movement. The scythe had achieved perfection in the art of cutting. But to build the world, humanity needed a tool that perfected the art of shaping. The adze is a prehistoric tool. It is one of mankind's earliest specialized woodworking tools, with the oldest examples dating back to approximately 70,000 years ago. Its design is a work of pure genius that changed the course of human civilization. Unlike the axe blade, which is parallel to the handle, the adze blade is set at a right angle. The simple twist changes everything, turning it into a tool for shaping and smoothing wood. This one invention set in motion craftsmanship across the globe. The ancient Egyptians used adze to create intricate furniture, boats, and sarcophagi. These products were buried in the tombs of the pharaohs and have survived to this day. Thousands of kilometers away, Maori craftsmen in New Zealand used adzes made from the sacred greenstone punamu. Today, the adze remains indispensable for artisans who require a level of control not available with power tools. Traditional boat builders shape the intricate curves of a boat's hull, while log home builders create beautiful handcrafted textures on massive logs. The history of the sickle begins peacefully in the gardens and vineyards of ancient Mesopotamia more than 3,000 years ago. The earliest versions were simple pruning hooks for working vines and trimming trees. The Romans perfected its design and distributed it throughout their vast empire. Its design is ingeniously simple. The heavy curved blade concentrates all the force of a blow into a powerful slash. A sharp hook is used to pull through and cut branches. It's a knife, an axe, and a hook in one deadly effective tool. The sickle is still the main tool of farmers and foresters, especially in England. There it is used for the traditional craft of hedge laying, weaving living branches into natural fences. However, this humble farming tool has a dark secret. It became the national weapon of England. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the sickle was cheap, easy to make, and every farmer already knew how to wield it with deadly skill. Entire armies of sickle bearers could be assembled almost overnight. When mounted on a long pole, it became a fearsome English bill. At the Battle of Ain Court in 1415, English sickle-bearers played a decisive role in the brutal hand-to-hand combat that destroyed the French cavalry. The power of one person with a sharp instrument is enormous. But what happens when this ingenuity is combined with the strength of an animal? You get an invention that allows humanity to cultivate the entire planet. Meet the ancestor of all plows. The RO, or scratching plow, first appeared in the Neolithic era about 8,000 years ago. His invention is directly related to the domestication of cattle and marks the beginning of large-scale agriculture. Its design is simplicity itself, a wooden spike, sometimes with a stone or iron tip dragged along the ground. The critical difference is that unlike a modern plow, the row does not turn over the soil. It simply scratches a shallow furrow, creating an ideal trench for planting seeds. For thousands of years, people considered it a primitive design. They were wrong. For many conditions, this is an ingenious design without turning the soil. Row leaves plant debris on the surface, which acts as a natural mulch. This ancient technique is now hailed as a cutting-edge agricultural breakthrough called conservation tillage. This is a modern method designed to keep the soil healthy and prevent erosion. But the Neolithic soil did this thousands of years ago. Row allowed farmers to move from small garden plots to cultivating vast fields of grain, enough to produce a food surplus and support the emergence of the world's first cities. Archaeologists can still see the evidence, crisscrossing raw marks preserved in the subsoil beneath the ancient mounds. Row allowed farmers to plant on a scale never seen before. But to reap this reward, they needed an even more ancient instrument, one that predates agriculture itself and made the entire agricultural revolution possible. Before the plow, there was a sickle. This tool is so ancient that it predates agriculture itself. Archaeologists have discovered flint-bladed sickles dating back more than 12,000 years. Tools so effective that their basic design has remained virtually unchanged for millennia. The design is so perfect that it has hardly changed. The curved blade allows the reaper to hook a bunch of grain stalks and cut them in one efficient motion. The first sickles used razor-sharp pieces of flint embedded in a handle made of wood or bone. Ancient Mesopotamian engineers even created high-tech ceramic sickles fired in kilns. They were incredibly hard and durable. While giant harvesters work on factory farms, the sickle remains the tool of choice for millions of people around the world. The sickle is used for harvesting grain in tight spaces on steep slopes where machines cannot pass. It is indispensable for special crops that can be damaged by rough mechanical harvesting. But the sickle is not just a tool. It is the tool that launched the biggest change in human history. Most scientists now believe that the sheer efficiency of the sickle allowed our ancestors to harvest enough wild grain. This made it a reliable food source, which led directly to the idea of intentional seed planting. Harvesting millions of stalks of grain is a monumental task, but it all starts with the single seed. One seed placed in one hole with an instrument so simple and perfect that its design has not changed in 2,000 years. This instrument is the ultimate example of a design so perfect that it cannot be improved upon. First recorded in Roman times, the landing stick has a simple pointed shape. Sometimes with a T-handle for convenience, its operation is ingeniously simple. Poke a perfect even hole in the soil to plant a seed, sapling, or bulb. That's it. Its design has remained exactly the same for 2,000 years because there is nothing to change. Long before the tool had an official name, farmers used bones, sticks, or even fingers. The planting stick remains an essential tool for gardeners everywhere, providing precise planting spacing and depth with minimal effort. Before the invention of modern planters, the planting stick was a high-tech agricultural tool. In the 18th and 19th centuries, farm workers used long planting sticks to seed entire fields. One man walked along the rows, methodically poking holes in the ground, and the second followed him, throwing a seed into each hole. The landing stick is a tool with 0 moving parts, zero fuel requirements, and zero room for improvement. This is physical proof of the principle that the simplest solution is often the most elegant and durable. While we invent complex, expensive machines to do the same job, the 2,000-year-old Roman planting stick remains faster and more efficient. Once the seed is planted, the grain is grown and harvested. A new problem arises: how to separate valuable food from worthless stems. For thousands of years, the answer was the flail. Another example of simple genius. The long wooden handle is connected by a flexible joint to a shorter, heavier club. This club is called a beater. The worker laid out the harvested grain on a hard, clean surface called a thock and struck it repeatedly with a flail. The heavy blow of the beater broke the seed heads, freeing the grain. Giant threshing machines made the flail obsolete on large farms by the 18th century. But for small farmers, the flail remains a practical, inexpensive way to handle grain, allowing for gentle threshing without damaging the straw. After threshing the grain, you are left with a jumbled pile of heavy edible seeds mixed with light, inedible pieces of stem and husk. This waste is called sex. To separate this chaotic mixture, ancient farmers relied on a winnower, a wide, shallow basket, also known as a winnower. The technique is pure genius. You simply scoop up a mixture of grain and chaff and gently toss it into the air on a day with a slight breeze. The heavy grain falls straight back into the basket, but the light, useless chaff is caught by the wind and carried away. It is an ideal separator that does not require fuel, machinery, or complex parts. This ancient technology was the basis of the American rice industry for more than 200 years. From the late 17th century to the 20th century, enslaved people from West Africa brought with them more than just the knowledge of growing rice. They also brought the ancient craft of making these special wicker baskets. Beautiful sweet G grass baskets still made by artisans in the South Carolina Lowcountry. It is a direct continuation of this tradition, linking the American South with its African heritage. The specialized basket weaving techniques used in the American South are almost identical to those still used in West African countries such as Senegal and Angola. Tangible links to African heritage that have survived and endured. All these tools, from the plow to the basket, rely on human energy. But to truly scale civilization, our ancestors needed to harness a power far greater than their own. They needed an engine, and they built one out of wood. The RO we saw earlier marked a turning point in agriculture, but it was the ox yoke that truly unlocked its power, allowing farmers to harness the power of two animals as one. The yoke transformed the simple plow from a garden tool into the engine of civilization. This carved wooden frame linked the oxen in a synchronized effort, multiplying the force they could deliver. Archaeological evidence such as wear marks on ancient cattle horns suggests the use of yards as early as the 29th century BC. Almost 5,000 years ago, this revolutionary technology changed the world. It allowed farmers to cultivate far more land than was ever possible with human muscle alone. This supercharged food production and was a critical step in the growth of ancient civilizations. So critical that we explored its history in our video about 10 ancient farming secrets. While tractors dominate modern industrial agriculture, draft animals remain the primary source of power. For millions of small farmers around the world today, the yoke remains the most effective and humane way to harness their incredible power. A well-fitted, custom-made yoke distributes the load correctly across the animal's body. This allows the team to reach its full potential comfortably and safely. What is truly amazing is that a specific yoke design is a cultural fingerprint. A head yoke attached to horns was the preferred design of Spanish farmers who brought it to Latin America. The neck yoke resting on the shoulders was an English tradition brought to North America by the colonists. Each design tells a story of migration and cultural exchange. None of the incredible tools on this list would be anything more than a useless piece of metal without a sharp edge. The technology that creates this edge is the oldest and most fundamental of all, the whetstone. This may be one of humanity's oldest technologies. The earliest evidence of humans using stones to sharpen and polish other tools comes from a rock shelter in Australia. They date back to an incredible 65,000 years ago. Our Paleolithic ancestors sharpened their tools long before they thought about planting a seed. The principle has never changed. A whetstone is simply a piece of natural stone with a fine abrasive grain. When you rub a metal blade against it at the right angle, it removes microscopic particles of steel, creating a new razor-sharp edge. Some natural stones, such as the famous novaculite found in Arkansas, are so ideal for sharpening. They are still prized by artisans today. Here's a fun fact. The name whetstone has nothing to do with water. The Old English word whetten simply means to sharpen. In 1823, a New Hampshire farmer discovered that the rocks in his pasture were ideal for sharpening his scythe. This launched the American whetstone industry, which is still thriving today. The whetstone is the quiet fundamental force behind every tool on this list. An ancient technology that gives every perfect design its edge. Without her, all these ingenious inventions would be just curious pieces of metal in a museum. Progress is not always about reinventing the wheel. Some tools were so well designed, so perfectly adapted to their task that they have hardly changed in 1,000 years. You can mechanize them, you can scale them, but you cannot surpass them. From curved blades to sharpened sticks, from baskets to yokes, each tells the story of human ingenuity in its most elemental form. Which ancient instrument surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that ancient wisdom still deserves a place in the modern world, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who appreciates a tool that just works. See you again in New Way.